Movies that they shouldn't even be thinking about remaking. We're going to talk about it right here on Strange Planet NYC. Hello, welcome to Strange Planet NYC. I'm your host, Ralph Perez. If you like this content, please consider subscribing below by tapping on the subscribe button and on that bell for future notifications of Strange Planet NYC and Horror and Coffee content. Now, let's get on with it, shall we? Remakes. Look, for those of you, very few of you who know me, I have a problem with remakes, but there are actually some remakes, some movies out there that I think did well as a remake, and I'm gonna make a future video about movies that my list of movies that I think would make great remakes. But there are these certain movies you just don't want to touch. There's these movies that are time immemorial. You don't touch with a 10-foot pole. You don't try to be like, hey, I have an idea, another way to make money in Hollywood. Let's make more remakes. And then they try to make a remake of this particular movie. And the best thing that they could have done was left it alone, because there are some films that were so well made, that were so well put together, that why the heck would you want to try to fix something that's not broken? Forget the money. It's not about the money. It's about the creative process of making a great movie. You don't mess that up. Here's a list of what I think they shouldn't touch. Ready? And there's no real, ranking. There's not a rank thing. It's just my top 10. My 10 movies you shouldn't remake. Let's do this. Sleepaway Camp. Now, here's the thing. It's not what you think. Sleepaway Camp, if you know of this film, you know it's grit, it's low budget, and you know how impactful it was when it came out at the time it did in the early 1980s. It was, this whole thing about the girl going away on a sleepaway camp, and she was bullied, she was quiet, she was kind of and then, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the movie yet, and I think, if you don't want to know, leave. You left? Good. It turns out the girl was actually a boy. And the end scene of that film was very shocking. It was creepy and shocking, and the way they shot it was great. I loved how they shot it, and I loved how they left the audience just completely stunned and freaked out because of the way it came out. Okay? The way it was revealed. Now, the reason why I don't think this should be remade by any stretch of the imagination is that kind of thing right now in this day and age, where everything is kind of more fluid regarding who is considered a boy or girl or this or that. You know what I speak of. It's the time of the age, really. Back then in the early 80s, that didn't exist yet. So, yeah, that was shocking. If somebody were to watch that now, just the original, right now, not so much. They'll be like, okay. But do you see what I'm saying? It's not impactful for this time. Now, if they were to ever really make another Sleepaway Camp, a remake of it, so to speak, it would have to be a different kind of outcome. It can't be that same one, because it's not relevant to the time. This is different now. Okay, we're living in a different time where something like that won't, make everybody quake or freak out. It has to be something really out there, something people haven't seen yet. And I think that's why I don't think Sleepaway Camp should be touched. Great film, great horror classic for the time. Leave it alone. Wait, here's another one. Predator. 1987's Predator. I'm not talking about the sequels and the prequels and the this and the Alien. No, I'm talking about the original Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. The reason why I don't think that would make a good remake is that we already kind of have the gist of what it's about. There's nothing really surprising about Predator anymore. We know what it does. Okay, it's an alien species that hunts for game, and they hunt for other intelligent beings that have weaponry just like they do. It's a contest. It's a show of contest between races. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. We saw that in all the films that have to do with Predator. In all of them. You know, even the ones that when they fought the alien. Same thing. It's not the same kind of thing that you can remake and be like, hey, I just remade Predator, and this is the guy who played Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm like, no, that you can't top Arnold. Arnold was the best. Yeah.
Stick around.
Can't do it, right? So that's a movie that they should just leave alone. Don't remake it, because you're not gonna. I think first of all, I think it's gonna bomb at the box office anyway. If we ever have a box office again. I hate this quarantine crap. How about this movie? I thought of this in my top 10. Grease. I know Grease isn't a sci-fi movie, it's a horror movie. I get it, but it's a great musical. It came out in 1978. It's old. You could see its age on it. You know, you could see the time. But then again, it was a 1978 movie that depicted a setting in the 60s or something, you know, in the early 60s. So it's kind of like, all right, so age to age. What are you going to do? Are you going to do a modern version of Grease? Don't do that. It looks stupid. It'll come across as stupid. Here's another movie they shouldn't remake. E.T. the Extraterrestrial. Steven Spielberg classic. Came out in 1982. This movie did something for the audiences, okay? It was such a great, for Steven Spielberg fans, a great follow-up to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It took that Close Encounter and made it even closer, okay? Boy finds the little alien in his, hiding in his home, and he shelters him and tries to help him find his way to contact his parents or his family or his people or whatever to get back home to whatever planet he was from. And the way it was shot so beautifully. And I know they did that kind of like re-release, special edition, when they used CGI effects, which I wasn't too crazy about personally. Didn't really do it for me. I preferred the original. You know, a movie like that doesn't really hold ground in this day and age to have a remake done for it. If you really want to show your family the story of E.T. the Extraterrestrial, pop in the original. That is the original. That is E.T. Because you know what they're going to do. They're going to like redesign the creature if they try to remake that. And it's like, really? You know, is he going to look cuter? Is he going to look pretty? Is he going to look uglier? Like, I mean, he was ugly enough, right? Though some people would say, oh, he's cute. E.T.'s cute. I've heard that. The story is too good to be remade. And if you were to try to remake it, you would mess it up. I don't care what director you think you are. You can't do it. You can't top a classic like that. I thought of this one for quite some time. I don't think they should remake this one either. First Blood. Yeah, I said it. First Blood with Sylvester Stallone. You know the story. A former Vietnam vet goes buck wild after being harassed by a cop at a town, and then, you know, all hell breaks loose, and he does his thing. Of course, that spawned all these other movies. It spawned a franchise, basically, that people loved. You know, even Last Blood came out a few months ago, you know, which was, I haven't seen it. So, I've never been a real fan of the First Blood films. You know, I saw 1, 2, and that's it, to be honest with you. But I have to say, I enjoyed the first one to the point that if they would try to recreate that, there's not much to recreate. There's plenty of movies out there that have the whole thing of a war veteran having to deal with his losses and cope with his anguish with that, and exercising that in a bold and explosive way, the way Sylvester Rambo does in this movie. You know, it's like people are, you know, I think the problem with Hollywood these days is that they're running out of original ideas. And so as a result, they're not as much, they're still there. They're coming by, but they're not as much as they used to be. So now they're like kind of taking old stories and retelling them for a more modern audience. But I don't think you have to go modern with a movie like that. First of all, you could just watch Last Blood and enjoy that if you want something in a more modern context, because that connects to the First Blood. And if anything, you can make more money for people watching the original First Blood with all the streaming and Blu-rays or whatever you can buy from it. Here's another Sylvester Stallone classic, Rocky. Don't remake Rocky. The original Rocky, the first Rocky. Don't do that. Don't be, because first of all, that movie was first. It's funny how a franchise like that started out in a more dramatic, as more of a drama. Then it became more like action packed with the boxing. You had Mr. T, and then you had Draco later, and all that, which was fine. Okay, I get how that can evolve, but when you do a movie like Rocky, it is such a beautifully well made film. The story is so deep. And if anything, in a way, if you think about it, they kind of did remake it with Creed. See where I'm going with that? So if Creed kind of followed this more or less the same formula as the original Rocky, because this was Creed's son, right? Apollo Creed's son, and he, he wanted to like follow his dream to be a boxer, and he found Rocky Balboa, played by Sylvester Stallone, and he showed him the ropes and the story and everything. And I loved how that movie. I loved Creed, to be honest with you. So I think that, in my opinion, Creed is as close to a Rocky remake as it's ever gonna get, but without it being a real Rocky remake. Okay, but it's in a modern context by today's standards. So I thought that was good. So, but as for the original Rocky movie, no. Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's right. I said it. And, I'm gonna say Steven Spielberg is a little bit all over this list because his movies are so good. Why would you bother trying to remake something like that? You saw the story. You know what I speak of. Indiana Jones and his adventures in the mid-30s. This is before the outbreak of the Second World War. Hitler was already in power at that point. So you had this, desire for more power. And he was trying to exploit one of the most holiest artifacts in history, the Ark of the Covenant, to try to, violate that power for his own selfish intent. And Indiana Jones, played by Harrison Ford, that was great. That movie, I can never get tired of seeing that movie, because that movie kept you at the edge of your seat with its action and with its thinking and with the whole investigative process of finding out where the Ark was hidden, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's amazing. Great movie. Leave it alone, because the only thing that would be different would be the CGI effects. And for its time, I thought the effects they used back then were more than good enough. I see when the guy's face melt and it's over. I don't need to see a CGI version of that. Why the hell I want that? No. Okay, ready for this? Hold on to your hats. Please, for the love of God, I can't even talk. Do not remake Star Wars. Don't do it. I've heard of that. I've heard rumors for the last few years that they were going to remake the 1977 original that spawned this empire. And I mean that, it's funny how I use that term, of Star Wars. It's like, no. I thought about it for a minute, and I went, no. Look, granted, I personally enjoyed the updated versions that came out in the late 90s before the prequels came out, that had the extra stuff they threw in, CGI effects and all that. I did like that. I did appreciate that very much, because I don't think it compromised the movie. Of course, people will be like, well, what about Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi and that lightsaber fight? That lightsaber fight was whack compared to how they did the lightsaber fights in all the other movies. Granted, it's not exactly the most exciting lightsaber duel in comparison, but it's still Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader, and I think that should be respected. As a matter of fact, somebody, and I don't know who, I'll post a link down below so you can check it out, posted an awesome version, updated version of Obi-Wan Kenobi fighting Darth Vader in A New Hope in the original Star Wars movie. And they kind of like blended it with the original film. And some shots were of the original Obi-Wan and Darth Vader fighting, but it mixed in with something more updated where their fighting was a lot more like intense and real, like wow, what we got familiar with and what we grew to love with the other films. And I loved how they did that. I wouldn't mind them adding that into the Star Wars movie as another extended edition or revised edition, but it would still be the original film. But by no means, just that part, but by no means, please, that's something you do not remake. You don't touch that. You really don't. It's just like that. The next movie I'm going to mention is a movie actually that I have to admit they did remake. But the reason why I'm mentioning it here is because I really want them not to remake it again. I am talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Now, back in the late 90s, I failed to remember the exact year it came out. And the reason why I barely remember is because I only saw it once in the theater and I walked out of the theater so disappointed. Like, what the hell did they do here? They basically took the movie Psycho and shot it the exact same way, shot by shot, screen by screen, line by line, but in color. You could just say it like that, in color. Oh, sure, there'll be different things. The cars will be updated, late 90s, whatever, but it was the same freaking thing. They shot this in such a way that it was a flat line in regards to character development. It was a flat line in regards to just how the movie portrayed itself to be. It was a dud. And because it was a dud, they shouldn't have remade it. You don't remake a classic like Psycho. I pop it. I have my Blu-ray of Psycho. I watch it. I pop it in. I watch it whenever I'm in the mood for it. And that's it. That's that Psycho. Now, granted, Bates Motel was a great series. Don't get me wrong, Bates Motel, but that's a TV series. You can get away with certain things there. And I actually appreciated it for what it was. Its own storyline, its own kind of revision of it. But as a movie, as the movie Psycho, as Alfred Hitchcock wrote it, as he directed it, you leave that alone, people. You got to leave that alone. Do not try to remake it, even if you want to try to remake it with a different dialogue and different shots and all that. Not doing the same mistakes that late 90s version did. That's not even the point I'm trying to make. I'm trying to just say, don't touch it. Don't touch it, because even if you try doing it that way, you'll fail. Psycho is an awesome film. Don't touch it. Okay, I got two left. Here's my second one. Ready? The Exorcist. The Exorcist is one, if not the most scariest horror film in history of horror films. And what's funny about me saying that is that the director originally didn't intend it to be a horror film. But dag. Come on. That movie had not only its horror element, but it's had its psychological element in it as well. There was something deeply disturbing on the mental level that connected to the spiritual level within the characters, particularly Father Karras, which was an incredible character in this film. His story, his backstory, when it finally collided with poor Reagan McNeil, who was possessed by this demon, it was a collision. It was a collision to explore, and it did, and it was a great. I loved how it started, and I loved how it ended it. There have been so many possession movies out there since then that I've tried to set the standard and the bar up there to raise up to the Exorcist expectations, and you can't. None have succeeded. It's been what, 48 years or something like that since The Exorcist came out? 48, 47 years? Now, don't get me wrong. Evil Dead and the Conjuring films have been great. No, I'm not blasting them. But to this day, nobody's been able to do what they did with William Friedkin's The Exorcist. I'm talking about the writer of, who wrote the novel. Can't do it. Don't do it. And my final movie that they shouldn't even touch with a 10-foot pole is, again, Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg's 1975 Jaws. There have been shark movies, many of them. Okay? There have been even sequels to Jaws. There's been 47 Meters Below, or I don't know if I got the number right. They have The Shallows. I love The Shallows, but it's still not Jaws. Okay? They had Jaws 3D, which was stupid. Nowhere close to it being Jaws. There's always going to be movies regarding sharks. That's always going to happen. But Jaws did something different. And no CGI magic is going to make that, bring it up from the level of wow that it was. Now, because that's the only thing they can add to it. And they shouldn't. Yeah, the shark looks kind of fake. Now that you look back on it, you can say, oh, yeah, it looks kind of robotic. But it doesn't look that robotic. It was just the right flavor. It was just the right tone that movie portrayed about the fear of going into the water, knowing that it might be your last dip. Guys and gals, Jaws is, first of all, Steven Spielberg's first landmark film. That's the film that put him on the map. That's what started. If it wasn't for Jaws, he wouldn't have been able to probably do all those other films he made later on, that we all love so much. This is different. This is, an incredible movie about a shark and about what you do, what you don't do. I don't know what else to say about it. To remake something like that will be an insult to Steven Spielberg, I believe. It would be an insult to the story of Jaws. It would be an insult to even the guy who wrote the book, the novel that the movie is based on. It's just, it wouldn't work. It would not work. It's not, the suspense wouldn't be there. The dread wouldn't be there anymore. It's different, nowadays. Nowadays, not even jump scares work on anybody in the theaters. How do you expect a movie about the same story about a shark to do the same? It won't. Well, guys and gals, that's my list of all the movies that should never be remade, ever. Do you have a different list? Are there some movies I haven't thought about? What do you think shouldn't be made into a remake? Talk to me. Comment below and share with me what you think about movie remakes, what should be remade, what shouldn't. This is Ralph Perez from Strange Planet. Take care.